What better way to combine two of my passions into a single project? Minions and, wait for it, Tealight holders. I start with a blank cut from a beam. I have been meaning to practice my lathe skills, as well as take my new lathe tools for a spin. They are old school tools, not the new ones with carbide inserts. Most of what I do now is pretty straightforward. Take the lathe tools to the wood until there is no more wood to remove. I know it sounds silly, but when you are turning something you usually do not have measurements or plans and have to go with your gut. At least that is what it feels like for me, and what makes turning such a unique experience. Looking back, I would have done some things differently, especially by turning the three pieces separately, since I decided that the leftmost piece would not do for what I had envisioned, and replaced it by my first attempt at making a box. I feel I should point out that I have little to no experience with these tools. I have watched great turning videos on YouTube, but until you have these tools yourself, you do not really know what to look for. So that will be something to work on as well. Here I am shaping the box and take off the lid. Since my Tealight sized Forstner bit is notoriously dull, I decided to turn the hole for the Tealight directly, and in my experience the parting tool works best for that. Your mileage and experience may vary. I almost forgot to cut the lip of the lid, but that worked surprisingly well. One of the important things about lathe work is to have a rough idea of the steps you want to take and to remember to sand on the lathe whenever possible. There are few things more annoying than taking something off the lathe only to realize that you have not sanded it yet. For example, I did not think about sanding when I parted off the lid. Lucky for me, the step on it allows me to put it in my chuck in order to sand it. I have considered going for the old metal ball with fuse design, but since I have to fit a Tealight sized hole into it, I opted for a more oblong, modern shape. The box is supposed to look like a bomb. Cue minions carrying it, reminiscent of some of the early Minions shorts. I take to the disc sander to round over the connection points of the two egg shapes. To complete the design, I need to go out on a limb. I mean, make some limbs. For that I use dowels that I still had on hand, but it would be possible to make those either on the lathe or with a dowel blade. I cut them on the bandsaw and sand the ends burr free and chamfered on the disc sander. Now comes the fun part, because using a rather blunt tool on a more delicate piece, hoping that it comes out right, is always fun. This spade bit is the same size of the dowel that will make for the trademark glasses, and I use my vise to hold the little guy in place for this operation. The one-eyed minion was easy, but the two-eyed takes a little more care to make both eyes come out parallel. After considering using some kind of shoulder, I decided to take a different route for the arms. They are supposed to extend somewhat radial from the minions to make a V, which will then grab the bomb. The legs should be level too, but just in case, holding them against the disc sander will fix any small misalignment. I like how the grain comes out, and with a few coats of spray lacquer or wax, this should look quite decorative and nice. But what would minions be without their color scheme? So I decided to slap some yellow and blue onto them and use a smaller braid point bit to drill a slight indentation that will give the eyes some depth. And also paint the bomb in what I hope to be a vaguely threatening kind of boring green-gray-ish. For that I used acrylic paint, and something I like to do with that is to take a paper towel and wipe the piece down shortly after applying the paint. Nah, who am I kidding? I dropped the lid, it got coated with sawdust and I wiped it off. The result looked nice enough to repeat it for the rest of it. To make the carrying more realistic, I'll put a small spacer underneath the bomb to create some shadow there. The feet need to be glued to the base plate. I made the shoes from hot glue and added them after the minions were glued in place. And since I need to attach the arms to the bomb anyway, why not use hot glue to model the hands too? And here we go. And since it's a Tealight holder, there's this little Tealight holder ceremony on this channel, so give me a second. And there you go. Minion Tealight holder. And I think this minion comes out especially well because this one can't really look over the rim of the Tealight holder. One thing that you might have noticed is that the bomb, you might see me pointing at it, the thing in the middle, is not entirely level, but that's okay because I managed to slightly taper the Tealight indentation, of course with full intention to do so, so that you can easily balance the Tealight that it's level again. Well, it's tight enough not to slip, and even if it did, it wouldn't go as far as to actually spill any wax. One design flaw is that I cannot put the lid on, well, I shouldn't put it on while the Tealight is on, obviously, although it would probably extinguish pretty quickly, but there's no room here for the wick and the Tealight itself, so that won't work while there's a Tealight in there. But Minion Tealight holder. Just give it a shot. No, you don't really need any plans, you just need to, well, have at it. What could possibly go wrong? I bet that's what those two minions thought before they picked up the bomb with the fuse lid. So, thanks for watching, and as always, remember to be inspired.